Welcome! So glad you could make it. Welcome to the biggest challenge to your career confidence, the results of the Career Confidence Survey. I'm Gwen Chappell, and I want to thank you so much for investing your precious time and energy to be here. You've made a wise decision. You are investing in yourself and learning about confidence and career confidence and managing your career. It's a good investment of your time and energy. So, it's great to know that there's other professional women out there eager to learn how they can increase their confidence and then live up to their full potential. And today's webinar will help. You've made a wise decision to be here. You took action to get what you want. Like this woman, you clearly have your eye on the ball. You're already focused on your goals. You're already a winner. You've already created a little win for yourself. And I want you to start noticing these little wins and appreciating them, because that's part of creating confidence. Acknowledging what you do well and remembering what you do well. So pat yourself on the back for making the effort to be here and learn more all about confidence. So today you will learn a summary of the answers to the survey. What's your number one challenge when it comes to career confidence? And you'll also learn the 4 categories of challenges to career confidence, and then a summary of the process that I think will help develop your confidence. So by the end of today's webinar, you should have some new ways of thinking about confidence as it relates to your career, along with some ideas for your next steps and increasing your confidence. Now, but before we get into the thick of things, I want to help you get the most of our time together. One of my degrees is in educational psychology, so part of my education is in learning theory, helping people learn and recall information. And I taught study skills, and I was an academic coach and strategist at the University of Saskatchewan. So based on my education and experience, I know that if you want to learn faster and remember more, you need to be actively engaged in your learning. So that means if you could please turn off all the distractions right now, turn off the phone, turn off the internet, turn off notifications. I've made that mistake before. Turn off the notifications so you won't notice when a friend just posted another really interesting video or made a comment on something you commented on. And the next thing is a clear goal is really essential to complete any project successfully. So I would encourage you to set a goal for yourself. What do you want to take away from this webinar? Just take a couple of minutes to think about this. What is your purpose in coming here? This is good practice for setting achieving goals in other areas of your life. Just take a few seconds to think about this and jot down a word or two. And I'm going to take a little sip of water. Okay, cool. Now, before you put down your pen, I have another question for you. If you had all the confidence that you needed, what would you do? So if you had all the confidence you needed to do whatever you wanted, what would you be able to do? What would you create? What would you build? What would you make? What would you be able to accomplish? How would it impact your life, your finances, your relationships? What would you have in your life that you don't have now? Who would you be? How would you feel? Just take a couple minutes to imagine who you would be and what you could do. While you muse on that, let me tell you a little bit about myself and why I want to help people increase their confidence. And maybe my story will help you understand your own reasons for being here in the call and what motivates you. So I'm Gwen Chappell. I am delighted to be here on the call with you. I love teaching, I love coaching, I love learning, and I'm passionate about helping people develop their full potential. And I love being an online trainer and coach because it helps support me and encourages me to develop my full potential. But it hasn't always been this way. Confidence, or really rather the opposite, the lack of confidence, has been a challenge for me. When I was growing up, I was a bit of a misfit. I grew up on a farm, and let me be clear, I had a great family, I had loving parents, I had no overt trauma in my life, except that I just was a misfit. I was a dreamer. I loved to immerse myself in a good book. Stories were the way I made meaning in my world. I love stories, and I still do. It's one of the reasons why I'm such a good coach, because I just love to listen to people's stories, and I also have the ability to see the patterns. I love making meaning from all those patterns of details. But as I said, I didn't fit in all that well with my working class community, not even at school. Even though I love learning and I'm reasonably intelligent, I was a perfectionist and overly sensitive to criticism. So I didn't have a lot of confidence in my ability to succeed, even though I was a pretty good student. And I was uncertain about the value of my interests or preferences. After all, a dreamy, artsy, scholarly temperament doesn't really have a lot of value in a practical, hands-on work environment like farming. So my talents, whatever they are or were, went mostly unrecognized, especially by me. When it came time to choose a career, I thought my choices would be something like teaching or nursing or medicine, but I wanted to be a little bit more out of the box. I didn't want to do any of those typical, predictable kinds of things. I wanted to go to university, although I didn't know what I was going to study. And my father didn't want me to go. He didn't see any reason that I should go and study anything other than going to secretarial school, which I thought would be the worst form of torture. Well, I went to university anyway, and I studied literature. And I remember that first class where in English literature, English 101 it was back then. It was such a revelation. Here was a professor taking literature absolutely seriously. They actually thought that literature could influence the world in important ways. Art was suddenly revealed as being important. I thought I was in heaven, reading, learning about character, psychology, looking for the deeper meaning. I loved reading the books. I could just gobble them up. So I thought I was in heaven until it was time to write the essays. I had always struggled a little bit with writer's block, but I managed to get through my undergrad degree, and then I went on to get a master's in English. But I struggled with writer's block. I remember that at the end of 1 year, I had taken 5 English classes in 1 year, and I had such a pile of essays left at the end of the year. I had one prof who was kind enough to let me hand in my essay 4 days after the final exam. And he said it had to be 4 days after the final exam because that's when he had to get the final grades in. And I don't know how many overnighters I took where I just delayed and delayed and delayed and then finally forced myself to write the the essay the night before it was due. So I really struggled with writer's block. And writer's block is a huge lack of confidence. When I started graduate school in English, I really struggled. At one point, I had a small child. I think she was 3 at the time when I entered graduate school in English. And then I had became pregnant with our second child. And I had started the degree recovering from a surgery, so I already started feeling exhausted and working and taking classes. I did get through the classes, and then I started my thesis, which should have been a wonderful experience because it was something that interested me an awful lot, which was making meaning, gendered subjectivity, in 2 speculative fiction novels. And I love science fiction and speculative fiction and thinking about possibilities and worlds like that. And then I ran into a critical co-supervisor who had what my other supervisor eventually identified as an adversarial tone in her comments to me. This just crushed me. I have never encountered anybody who is so demeaning, I guess, in her tone. So very critical. It just crushed me. I felt like a complete idiot, so inadequate. It was such a huge lack of confidence. It was so humiliating that I did not want to tell anybody about it. I was just so embarrassed. I had completely internalized this problem. And I completely discounted my own value. And thank goodness for good friends, and one friend in particular who, in no uncertain terms, made clear to me that she thought this woman was expletive, and that gave me the courage to take these comments to my co-facilitator, and then I was able to move past that and the adversarial tone, which that simple matter-of-fact evaluation just really put everything back into perspective. Anyway, I got help to deal with that writer's block. I got through the thesis, I graduated, but it was obvious to me that I lacked confidence in big time. So I studied educational psychology and specialized in counseling and career counseling. And then, of course, because it's an education degree, I learned about learning and memory and what can get in the way of learning and recalling information. I learned that the problems I faced were very common and that anxiety was a big issue with a lot of students, and that a lack of confidence and anxiety caused a lot of procrastination and underachieving in university students, underperforming too in university students. And now I am immersed in stories all the time, but not fictional stories, real life stories, stories about dreams and goals, challenges and struggles. And I get to draw on my strengths of love of learning and empathy and abstract thinking and help people like you identify their strengths and reach their goals. So I get to study and teach what I love, helping people get past the blocks that undermine their confidence and can keep them from knowing who they are and what they are meant to do with their lives. So I think we already talked about this. Why is confidence important? So let's see what some of the research says about confidence. Here are 3 studies that look at the impact of confidence on women. Now, just a nod or an acknowledgement, I guess. I know that guys can also struggle with a lack of confidence. So I don't want to I really want to be conscious of social bias and how it can impact the way that we think about issues. We don't want to fall into automatic thinking. Our brains tend to chunk information because it can be very helpful for us to recall information, but chunking information can also lead us into thinking about in stereotypes. And I just want to acknowledge that even though confidence tends to be a bigger problem for women, I also want to acknowledge that there are some guys who can also struggle with it. So I'm just focusing on women right now because primarily I work with women. And also, social bias tends to value traditional masculine behavior more highly than it values traditional feminine behavior. And I realize that this also brings up all sorts of challenges for individuals who are prefer to behave in non-traditional gender ways, if I can say that without stumbling over it. Apparently I can't, but my point is that that is a whole nother topic, and I want to acknowledge it, but I also want to say that this is something that we don't have time to talk about right today. We're focusing mostly on confidence and how it impacts women. So let's see. So the first study here is how confidence can impact the income and promotions of new graduates in the United Kingdom. So this is a study of students at 7 universities, including Oxford and Cambridge. And the study found that female graduates who go into work are 9 percentage points less likely to be in a graduate level job than their male counterparts. 90% of male leavers secured graduate level jobs, compared with only 81% of female leavers 6 months after graduation. So, and this gender disparity extended to pay, with the average male leaver earning £25,000 6 months after graduating, compared with £21,000 for females. So there is a wage discrepancy there as well. Now, and if you would like the link to that, I have it available, and I will find, if you're interested, you can email me and I'll find a way to get it to you. So next study I wanted to bring up is a study reported in Forbes, which is a U.S. magazine for those of us who don't live in the U.S. and might not know what it is. While men and women graduate with the same amount of confidence after a few years of work, women's confidence in their ability to attain their goals declines more so than men's confidence. Women's aspiration levels drop more than 60%, while men stay the same. Among experienced employees, those with 2 or more years of experience, 34% of men are still aiming for the top, while only 16% of women are. So let's see if I can multiply 16 times 2. That's 32%, right? So that is less than half the number of women are still aspiring to the top than men. Okay. So, and as the women and men gain experience, women's confidence also falls by half, while men stays about the same. And then the last one I wanted to just bring up is about the glass ceiling, the dreaded glass ceiling. So in this study, it has been long believed that keeping females out of senior positions was attributed to the glass ceiling, but this particular report, a survey by management experts, suggests that the biggest obstacle to women's climb to the top is their level of confidence, not their gender. So that is very interesting, I think. So it suggests that this is some of the reasons why we believe confidence is important. Oh, one last study here. In the business world, women who are aggressive, assertive, and confident, but who can turn these traits on and off, depending on the social circumstances, get more promotions than either men or other women. And that is according to a study coming out of Stanford Graduate School of Business. So that is very interesting. So it's the ability, so that actually it sounds a lot like women who are behaving or are able to adopt some of the attributes of the masculine, the being more aggressive and assertive and confident, but also being able to turn them off, having more flexibility. So that's a really interesting insight, I think. All right. Now, so I think I've already described some of my concerns or my experience with a lack of confidence. But here's a little bit of a summary of what I perceive to be some of the challenges with a lack of confidence. It affects both men and women. It impacts women more strongly. And this created enough interest for me to conduct a survey and do that little bit of research. That secondary research, reading what I just described to you. And then in general, individuals without confidence experience greater self-doubt. They might discount their ability. They might experience more anxiety. They might avoid challenges, and this results in lost learning opportunities, which in turn results in lower capability and lower income. Oh, lost opportunity, lost potential, lost contribution. So the career, at the very worst case, the career could get derailed. A person could be overlooked and underappreciated. They might be resigned. Sorry, I went there too fast. Resigned, withdrawn, become discouraged, and even depressed, or even maybe clinically depressed. So we don't want that to happen to anyone. So that is why I conducted this survey, and I asked the survey, what's the biggest challenge to career confidence? And results of the career confidence survey. So I hope my little story gave you a little insight into my commitment into developing career confidence and maybe helped you get clear about your interest in confidence. And I think that's out of place, that particular slide. So let me move, before we move on to the survey, let me give you a bit of context. I've been thinking about, so before we move on to the survey, let me give you a bit of context. I've been thinking about confidence as it impacts career for about 2 years now. I've been talking with coaches about my services, and she, sorry, let me start that again. So before we move on to the survey that I conducted, let me give you a little bit of context. I've been thinking about confidence as it impacts careers for 2 or 3 years now. I'd actually been talking with one of my coaches, and she observed that I really seem to be focused on confidence in career choice, not just helping people choose a career, but making sure that my clients felt confident that they were in the right job, that they had the skills and the strengths to succeed in that job. And so I thought it might be useful to see if my audience might be interested in the same things that I was interested in. So in the summer of 2015, I started a LinkedIn discussion in the group Connect Professional Women's Network. It's a really great group, by the way, with lots of interesting discussions and resources. And I started a discussion about career confidence by asking the question, lack career confidence? And do you or someone you know lack confidence in your choice of career or your ability to successfully perform the required duties? For instance, if you're asked to take on a leadership role or lead a team or give a presentation, how do you react? What advice would you give to someone facing an unfamiliar challenge? Now, this turned out to be a fairly popular discussion with 90 comments, with full of interesting perspectives, experiences, and recommendations. If you want to check it out, you can go to LinkedIn and join the group and search for the discussion. And if you can't find it, well, let me know and I will send you the link to the discussion. So I started the preliminary research into this topic, but of course at the same time, and probably even before the discussion, I was reading popular literature about confidence and career confidence, such as Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, Kitty Kay's and Claire Shipman's The Confidence Code, and Thomas Chamorro Przemysk's Confidence, Overcoming Low Self-Esteem, Insecurity, and Self-Doubt. I think I better take another sip of water. I'm having even more trouble than usual getting the words out in the right order. All right. And of course, as also I had all this training in educational psychology, which is has a lot of formal scientific research. So I kept that research in mind about setting and attaining goals and social influence and affirming or undermining confidence in individuals and teams. And I also took an executive coaching diploma, a graduate certificate actually I should say, from the University of Texas at Dallas. And they were also studied something called Power in Politics, which was a lot about social influence and how professional and personal branding can influence the accumulation of power and authority and how the power and authority is displayed. It's a fascinating subject. And if you've listened to any of my other discussions, you'll know that I believe that confidence is a combination of not just an internal mindset, but social perception. So we'll find out more about that in a few minutes. So, all right, finally, here we are. There's the career confidence research sources. So psychological research and popular literature and LinkedIn discussions, and then the survey, which is or was, what is your number one challenge when it comes to career confidence? So I also asked how big a problem it was and what had participants tried to do to solve the challenge. Now, I want to be clear because I don't want to misrepresent my results. I had a fairly modest response. I think it was 16 people who responded. So that's not really enough people to generalize. It's much more of a narrative, much more specific. And it really gives an intimate picture of the experiences of a few people. However, the results echo the LinkedIn discussions, and which, as I said, had over 80 comments. So that is getting to be a much more informed and extensive bit of research there. Now, I wouldn't be basing any. All right, so the results, I should say, fell into 4 categories. The responses fell into 4 categories: around career choice, navigating career opportunities, so in my survey, in addition to the primary question, which was what is your number one challenge when it comes to career confidence? And I also asked how big a problem it was and what did the participants do to try to solve this challenge. Now, I want to be clear. I didn't do a lot of promotion of this. I had a fairly modest response of, I think it was around 16 participants who responded and answered those questions. So it's not an extensive survey. So I just want to be really clear about the limitations of the information that I'm giving you. I think that's one of the aspects of critical thinking that is often overlooked, is that we need to ask our information providers to be transparent about their the limitations and scope of their research and who's sponsoring it. So you know that I'm self-sponsoring this and that I am doing it both for personal and professional reasons. So just so that we're clear here. All right. So there were about 16 people who responded, and the results were also echoed, or my analysis of the results are also reflect the information from the LinkedIn discussions, which was, I think I said it was over 80 comments. So it's getting fairly extensive. So the results fell into 4 categories. Around career choice, navigating career opportunities, social negotiation, managing social relationships and office politics. And then number 4, what we'd commonly think of confidence, and that's managing self-doubt and managing concerns about anxiety. So, number 1 category, career choice. So these were some of the responses. I'm uncertain about my career path. I never fully invested in my career. I have too many options, and I'm not satisfied with my current professional status. And that particular quote was expanded. The social status is not seen as high professional status as before, and financially not earning as much. So those are the categories related to career choice. The second category was navigating career opportunities, and some of the comments that we got there were that, or some of the responses that we got there was that the respondent was feeling like I'm falling behind or not pushing myself hard enough or using all my resources to reach my goals, not getting the perk of a slightly higher pay. Another respondent said, watching my coworkers move up to become my supervisors and then moving on to other roles while I stay where I am. And a third response was feeling like I do not have enough experience or the needed qualifications. And insecurity about job and job security. So you can see that the navigating the career opportunities fell into 2 subcategories. One is feeling uncertain about the abilities, and the second one is feeling frustrated and uncertain about how to get a promotion or assert themselves or to find the ideal position. Now, just to move on to the third category, social negotiation. Now, this is about managing social relationships and office politics. So it's not just the normal social skills, which we all start to develop from the time we are very small, things like making friends and managing our relationships with our family and going to school, all of which can be challenging on their own, but also managing the more difficult challenges like managing conflicts or deflecting hostility or animosity, which can be very difficult. So some of the quotes that my respondents said: in sales, the fear of rejection in awkward times when people feel you are pushy or you think they feel you are too pushy. And then another respondent said that one boss was threatened by my capabilities. And then in another situation, the same respondent said that she had to deal with the board that was totally out of control and fired her boss, which left her feeling very vulnerable. So that is the category around social negotiation, managing those social relationships and office politics, and really a lot of the power in politics that I was telling you about earlier. And the last category is the one that we often think about as feeling confident when we think of challenges to self-confidence. So it's things like managing the self-doubt, like managing disparaging comments or self-critical comments, discounting our abilities or overlooking our abilities, and our accomplishments and our skills, or just taking them for granted. So some of the respondents said that they were questioning themselves, they were second-guessing their abilities, they had problems with anxiety, and they were feeling inadequate. So those are some direct quotes from my respondents. So now, let me expand a little bit on each of these categories and then suggest some strategies that might help. So number one, the career choice. You could be in the wrong career, a career that doesn't match your personalities, interests, values, or abilities. Or you could be in the right career, but the wrong industry or the wrong organization. So a place where your values don't match the organizational culture, so the organization might not be a good fit, or you just might not be as interested in that particular industry, or that industry is just not doesn't match your values in one way or another. So a poor fit. If your current occupation or current environment is a poor fit for you, you could be experiencing a dissatisfying work or environment. You might find it difficult to exhibit enthusiasm and commitment. It might be difficult to connect with your coworkers. It might be oblivious to social networking and office politics, unable to identify the requirements. You could be unhappy at your work and experiencing increased stress. So my recommendations for you would be, first of all, decide if it's the occupation, the industry, or the organization. If it's the occupation, you need to evaluate your career choice. It might not be a good fit. You would probably want to you might want to consult with a career counselor. You might want to try and do this on your own and evaluate your personality, your interests, your values, your occupations. You might decide that you would like to get some formal assessments like the MBTI, the Strong Interest Inventory, get a values assessment. The MBTI, by the way, is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. You might want to consult a career professional because it could be very helpful in this situation. And sometimes it's hard to decide if it's the organization or the occupation. If you haven't had much experience in the career, it could be your organization. Now, if you know it's the organization, you might just want to tweak it a bit. You could see if you could change departments, if you can adjust the duties. Maybe you would like to move into a different position within the same organization. You might need to change your employers. You might want to even change your industry or even the sector. The same kind of work, but in a different industry. Okay. All right, we're moving right along here. The second category is navigating career opportunities, where you are uncertain about your abilities or your competence, or you are struggling to know how to find the best job, or in the same way gain a promotion. So you want to be able to evaluate your competence without bias and set your personal and professional goals. Find ways to develop your abilities and demonstrate your competence. And so you would probably want to work on your resume. You might want to create a portfolio. You might want to engage or volunteer for some visible, high-profile projects. Maybe assume some leadership positions if they are congruent with your values and goals. So the recommendations for career choice and navigating career opportunities are to discover who you are and what you want, and be clear on your values. You want to find work in a work situation that meets your criteria, and you want to design a plan to get you from where you are to where you want to go. And the last thing is to develop technical competence, the skills that you know are required to succeed, however you define your success. So if it's a technical competence and there are predefined skills and skill sets, there will probably be formal training in place that you can access quite easily, so it's not too difficult in that case to develop your competence. If you are looking for something that is more nebulous and less defined, you'll have to do a little bit more work to identify what you need to do in order to get the skills you need to succeed. All right, number 3, social negotiation. The third category is about social relationships and strategies. So, and managing those difficult conflicts and deflecting hostility. So this can definitely be challenging. And this is all related to emotional intelligence. With starting with self-awareness and basic self-management skills. And they're all intertwined with self-care and managing doubts, which brings us to our last category, managing self-doubt and anxiety. Managing a relationship with others. These last 2 categories are all part of emotional intelligence, managing a relationship with yourself and with others. In this context, in the career confidence context, you need to learn to manage energy to stay in the optimal stage to perform. You need to learn to separate your self-worth from your achievement. In the context of confidence in general, it's compassion and caring for yourself. So nurturing yourself, really managing that critical self-talk, and learning to think differently about the way you treat yourself. And this is a lifelong process of nurturing yourself and developing social and emotional intelligence. And learning to be assertive with style and grace, avoiding aggressiveness, developing that flexibility that we talked about earlier, where women who succeed are able to be assertive and confident and flip and turn that off depending on the social situation. All right, so finally, my recommendations to develop emotional intelligence is to develop compassion and caring for yourself and for others. Take time for self-reflection and self-awareness. Learn to manage that critical self-talk. There are many techniques that I learned in the course of my studies and my ed psych degree, but also there are summaries of it available on YouTube. You might look at something like cognitive behavioral therapy, or even just learning to look for those automatic negative thoughts, and recognizing them is the first step. Learn to manage your critical self-talk, manage your energy levels, and I call them energy levels, but some people might call them anxiety levels. Develop communication skills like assertiveness and networking and persuasion, and invest in self-development courses. You might want to get some assessments, you might want to just do reading on your own. If you would like, I can recommend some books for you. Just email me and let me know if you're interested in that. You might want some coaching. You can seek feedback from friends and family and colleagues, but depending on who you are, the feedback could be skewed either positively or negatively. If you're the kind of person who tends to be, well, put it this way, people are generally just too polite to tell you the truth, or they don't want to deal with the conflict of having to tell a difficult personality the truth. So it's difficult to get unbiased feedback from friends, family, and colleagues. So it is very helpful in that situation to find a third party who can collect feedback for you in something like a 360 assessment. A final recommendation here is seek mentors and mentors others. So just to wrap up here, this is the solution that I think my best recommendations to develop a career confidence. You want to develop your emotional intelligence, which is both the relationship with yourself and your relationships with others, and develop the skills required to have a good relationship with yourself. Self-awareness, self-assessment, self-acceptance, and empathy and connection with your friends and allies. You want to discover who you are and what you want, to be clear on your values. You want to find a work, ideal work that meets your criteria. And you want to design a plan to get from where you are to where you want to be. The fourth thing there is develop technical competence, the skills required to succeed, however you define success. So that is the process that I believe would help increase your confidence. And as you know, I am passionate about helping people get past the blocks that stop them from living their dreams. And I am in the process of designing programs to help people do just that. Now, I'm not ready to offer those programs just yet. I would like your feedback. And on these two programs, the first program is the career, with a tentative curriculum for the first program is the program is called Career Confidence Basics, and it would give you training in emotional intelligence. So it would have some training in mindset management, specifically in stopping critical self-talk and managing your energy, and which we all know is some people interpret that energy as anxiety, so it's managing your energy levels. And another aspect of emotional intelligence is developing your self-awareness, self-assessment, and self-acceptance, and also developing your communication skills. Some basic training in assertiveness and in networking and influence and persuasion, and also getting clear on your values. The other aspect of that would be career intelligence, finding work in a work situation that meets your criteria. So it would be some guidelines about that. Now, my intention is that we would whoa, what did I do here? There we go. My intention is, I didn't know that would happen, but my intention is to co-create this with the students. And oh, and I want to also mention that the aspect of career confidence, which is designing a plan to get from where you are to where you want to go, is not in the career confidence basics because it's in a group coaching called Winning Your Way. And Winning Your Way would have some minimal training called around building a dream, setting goals, and planning, as well as scheduling and meeting those goals. It would also involve group coaching and the ability to mastermind with other winning players. Sorry, winning wayers. So I'm thinking of starting these in mid-September, about 2 to 4 weeks from now, and I'd like your input. Would either or both of these interest you? So I'd like you to take action again. You've got your eye on the ball here. You've already made the effort to attend and watch the video, and I thank you for doing that. And I would really appreciate it if you would go to my Facebook group, Career Confidence for Women, and vote on the curriculum. There it is there. So it's Career Confidence for Women. So that is a very quick, very information-intensive review of the results of the survey on career confidence, and with what is the #1 challenge when it comes to career confidence. So I thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this, and I want you to think about those questions I asked you earlier. What would you do if you had all the confidence in the world? And then I would like you to pick one small thing that would help you be confident right now. And if you would be so kind as to offer some feedback in the Career Confidence group, I would really appreciate that. Anyway, all the best. It's Gwen Chappell signing off for now. All the best.